The news on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers this morning. Starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with contempt charge. Will go on indefinite strike August 14 if, and that's coming from NLC. Right, it says gives August 11 deadline for withdrawal of summons. Will face Nigeria's challenges squarely, and that's coming from Tunumbu. You can read more on page 43. Further story showing peace diplomacy. Cool. ECOWAS delegation meets with Niger military leaders. The writer says restore democracy in Niger through dialogue, not force. That's coming from ACF tells ECOWAS. 7 retired military personnel caution federal government against use of force. You can see that on page 41. On page 20, GSK Group to shut down operations in Nigeria. Subsidy removal, NNPCL, NIPCO plan 35 CNG stations nationwide. You can see that on page 8. On page 47, Women's World Cup, beware of Nigeria, Yankee wants England. Stories above, NPR, banks raise interest rates on savings deposits. You can see that on page 19. APC, how Ganduje emerged sixth national chair, Basiru, secretary. You can see that on page 8. Troops kill 36 terrorists, rescue 140 kidnapped hostages nationwide. On page 8, diphtheria outbreak claims 122 lives in Nigeria, says UNICEF. Lastly, on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, Obaseki warns of crisis without remedial works on federal roads in Edo. All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with Ganduje pledges reform, fairness to opposition, APC. The writer says the former governor, Senator Bashir, steps in. Tinubu, let's fulfill our promises. NWC gets Fiat to fill 6 vacant posts. Stories above. NSA probes another vessel held with stolen crude. Writer says a suspected military boat escorting ship. On page 5, we have oil gas free trade zone attracts $16 billion investment, and that's all we can take on the Nation. Let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with Nigeria's political dynasty wax stronger as poverty deepens. It's a big story. You can read that on pages 4 and 5. Contempt charge. NLC threatens strike if summons is not withdrawn. FX challenges. High OPEX force GSK's exit from Nigeria. Biden calls for immediate release of Bazoum. Others officials out of Niger. Why average Nigerians can't afford new vehicles. The coup in Niger. Military option unrealistic. And we can also see an infograph saying which generation wields the most power and influence in Nigeria. Lastly, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, manufacturers endangered as more Nigerians switch to cheaper brand. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with hashtag subsidy protest, federal government labor talks collapse, NLC begins strike August 14. Right, it says why labor made a U-turn on agreements reached with Tinubu on subsidy removal. Man LCCI demands more palliative from federal government. NLC gives reasons for ending protests. PDP LP mocks APC as NEC ratifies a Ganduje party chair. Delta governor indicts a Lagos hospital over doctor's death in elevator. Father of siblings killed by collapsed hotel fence demands justice. NNPCL NIPCO begins deployment of auto gas stations. Stories above Niger. Tinubu woos Libya, Algeria against junta. Federal government begins no work, no pay for striking doctors. Lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, new public service rules may force out 512 directors. And that's all we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you just joined me still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. Joining me to talk about some stories this morning is our correspondent, John Bosco Basiru. He's going to be talking about the coup ECOWAS delegation meets with Niger military leaders. Good morning, John Bosco. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning for having me this morning.
Yes. All right. Can you give us your report on, the special delegation of ECOWAS meeting with the coup leaders in Niger Republic?
Okay, yesterday, at the presidential villa Abuja, Mr. President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, dispatched a delegation to Niamey, the capital of Niger, to a dialogue with all necessary stakeholders in the country. You should understand that President Tinubu is the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Affairs of State and Government in the West African region. And recently there was a coup in Niger Republic, and being the chairman of ECOWAS, he has a role to play. And all the ECOWAS heads of state last week, assembled in Abuja, to look at the situation and then take a position. So what the president did yesterday, was to send a delegation comprised of the former military head of state, General Abdul Abubakar, retired, and even the Sultan of Sokoto. The Sultan of Sokoto, was also a military man. He sent them, to go and find out actually what is the position, to discuss with all the necessary stakeholders, on how to solve the problem amicably. He also sent, Babagana Kingibe, to also go and, have his own, discussions with some leaders on how, to tackle some of these problems. So I think what he really did is to see whether there is an amicable resolution of the problem, because, somewhat leaders have condemned the recent coup in Niger Republic. And if it is not well handled, it must snowball into, crisis, which may affect other African countries, West African countries. So as the leader and chairman of ECOWAS, head of state and government, so he started to dispatch, the powerful delegation.
All right. Earlier in the week, ECOWAS was saying that they would take all measures necessary, including the use of force. And when you look at this statement coming from ECOWAS, for Nigeria, what are the implications with the situation with Niger if the situation with Niger is not resolved?
I think it will have a grievous, implication in Nigeria, because Nigerians share a boundary, with Niger. You recall that some part of, Katsina State. Remember some years ago, Mr. President, the former president, Muhammad Buhari, told Nigerians that some of his natives are in Niger. So, which means Katsina, which is Nigeria, shares boundary with Niger. So it's already, the report has it that some people have started trooping from Niger to Nigeria, which is also going to create crisis. It's also going to create big conflict, because some of the people coming in, you may not know their mindset. Yeah, they may be as a result of hunger or the crisis there, but you don't know what the people will be coming in with. So it may even escalate the security situation in this country if not, properly handled. And some people are now even suggesting that military force should not be the solution, rather dialogue to see how, West African countries, should solve the problem. We also bear in mind that some other West African countries, some other African countries like Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, and some other ones are even backing, the military junta in Niger, which makes it a very complex, issue now. So it needs a lot of diplomacy, and I think that is one of the reasons, Mr. President sent Babagana Kingibe to Libya, to see how he will discuss with some of these African leaders, some of the stakeholders in Africa, to find an amicable solution to the problem.
Also, in this same week, Nigeria disconnected the supply of electricity daily to Niger as part of efforts by the ECOWAS to restore democracy in that nation. Can you tell us more on that?
It was one of the resolutions, reached by the ECOWAS head of state and government, to see whether some of these measures, could make the military junta to have a rethink. But I don't think that it may be a solution, using that measure for now. It is only when, diplomacy, fails to solve the problem that you can use extreme measure. Yeah, Niger benefits electricity from Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. And Nigeria has been playing a role of a big brother into West African countries. But some diplomats or some critics are saying that Nigeria ought not have used that measure by cutting off the power supply. Nigeria should have, exhausted all the necessary diplomatic means, before taking that measure. And believe you me, some of the information, coming out from Niger is not very palatable for Nigeria because you see online how, some people are now mocking Nigeria, for whatever reason. So I think that measure for now is an extreme measure. It's only when diplomacy fails to resolve the problem that we begin to think of, force or any extra measure, to tackle it.
All right. Thank you so much, John Bosco, for that report.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on, let's take our next story. Contempt charge will embark on nationwide strike August 14th, if, and that's coming from the NLC. Now, the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) yesterday threatened to embark on a nationwide indefinite strike from August 14th at the close of work on Friday, August 11th. The contempt charge against it by the federal government was not withdrawn. Recall that the Federal Ministry of Justice had gone to court on Wednesday to file contempt charge against Labour and the NLC and Trade Union Congress (TUC) for embarking on strike. At its National Executive Council NEC meeting to review Wednesday's nationwide protest, NLC demanded immediate withdrawal of the contempt charge. A communique issued at the end of the meeting said NLC leaders also gave reasons for suspending the nationwide protest, noting that NEC members deliberated exhaustively on the mood of the nation amid the suffering and deprivation across all the states of the Federation. According to the communique, NEC also reviewed the effectiveness of the nationwide protest, particularly the meetings with President Bola Tinubu, the leadership of the National Assembly, and the contempt charge action of the federal government through the National Industrial Court of Nigeria (NICN). The communique signed by NLC President and General Secretary Joe Ajaero and Ima Ugboaja, respectively, read, whereas Nigerians spoke loudly across Nigeria yesterday, Wednesday, to express their outrage over the huge suffering and impoverishment pervading the landscape, the President, Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu, responded through a closed-door meeting with the leaders of the Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria (TUC). Concrete agreements were reached, and the President personally guaranteed action on the following areas: commitment to an immediate restructuring of the framework for engaging the consequences of the PMS price hike, in line with the input of the labor leaders, the assurance that the Port Harcourt refinery will commence production by December this year, the pledge to ensure that agreement is reached on the wage award for Nigerian workers immediately, and the promise to unveil a workable roadmap to the CNG alternative next week. The Federal Ministry of Justice, through the NICN, has continued to allow the step to be used as a vehicle to truncate the dominance of the tenets of democracy and muzzle silence the voices of Nigerian workers, and has served as summons on the leadership of the NLC and TUC to answer the contempt of court charges, despite the provision of the Constitution to the contrary and the objective realities. Consequently, NEC in session resolved as follows: to support and affirm the decision to suspend further protests on the nationwide mass protests, to commit to maintaining the required vigilance needed to hold government accountable on its assurances and governance in general, to commit to the terminal date of August 19, 2023, within which the issues around the petroleum price hike will be agreed, given the assurances of the President and the National Assembly, to go on total strike across the country any day labor leaders are summoned to court by the government through the NICN, to demand the immediate withdrawal of this litigious terrorism by the Federal Ministry of Justice before the end of work on Friday, August 11, 2023, to embark on a nationwide comprehensive strike beginning Monday, August 14, 2023, if these contentious court summons are not withdrawn by whoever initiated it, while commending the national leadership and the state officials for the effective coordination of the protest. It urged all affiliates and state councils, including our civil society allies, to stay further action but remain focused and internally vigilant. All right, moving to our next story is APC, how Ganduje emerged sixth national chair, Basiru secretary. And former governor of Kano State, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, and former spokesman of the Senate, Senator Ajibola Basiru yesterday emerged as the national chairman and secretary of the All Progressive Congress (APC). They were so ratified at a National Executive Committee NEC meeting of the party, attended by the President Bola Tinubu and other top leaders of the party in Abuja. On the day that Ganduje assured that running of the APC would no longer be business as usual, with party appointing external auditors to probe its finances, there was discontent over the next appointment of the same fate national chairman and national secretary. Some chieftain of the party described the action as terribly insensitive. Wednesday night meeting of the National Caucus of the party had recommended Ganduje for the office of National Chairman and spokesperson of the Ninth Senate, Ajibola Bashiru, as National Secretary. The nomination followed the recent forced resignation of the Esquire National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, and National Secretary, Senator Iyola Omishore. Two officials of the party who spoke to Vanguard off record said while the development could not be immediately reversed, it must be on record that the APC has now yielded itself to a particular religion. We know what we went through with the Tinubu Shetima Muslim ticket. As if that was not enough, we were on the verge of producing a Muslim Senate president until many of us protested. That said, we still have a Muslim speaker. We did not force Adamu out only to be replaced by another Muslim. If you read former National Vice Chairman Northwest Saliu Umar Luxman's statements, one of his consistent demands were that Adamu should be replaced with a Christian from the North Central. Now, you did not do that, but went ahead to even distort the zoning formula by taking the office to the Northwest and to add salt to injury. The new National Secretary is also a Muslim. These are the two main people who run the party. There should be religious sensitivity, the official said. At a 12th meeting in Abuja yesterday, the APC NEC mandated the National Working Committee (NWC) to consult with all relevant stakeholders, evolve an acceptable zoning formula, and fill other vacant positions within its folds. Some of the vacancies the NWC was mandated to fill includes Deputy National Chairman North, National Woman Leader, and National Legal Advisor. The office of the National Vice Chairman Northwest was not listed, as Vanguard has earlier reported that the NWC was yet to accept the resignation of Lukman. Vanguard gathered that the national legal advisor of the party, Ahmed El Mazouk, had resigned from the party's NWC earlier in the week but kept his resignation under wraps. It was learned that he resigned following insistence by some of his colleagues that he could no longer be in office due to some grave allegations against him, which had prompted his interrogation by one of the anti-graft agency. However, a man who identified himself as a special advisor to the National Legal Advisor, Abdul Halim Adamu, in the statement said his principal resigned to allow for the ongoing reconfiguration of party offices for national cohesion and adequate regional representation. All right, that's all we can take on the stories today. Let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. The speaker says, I don't like the way you're treating me in this house, and I'm getting upset. And Mr. replies and says, meaning what? Mrs. says, up and set to deal with the situation. Up and set to deal with what situation, Mrs.? You know how they come for us every day. Interesting piece by Mr. and Mrs. Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. Find out today's stories. Go to our website, www.vanguardindia.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.